10 R&B groups that thought they were bigger than their star. 10 R&B groups who believed the name on the marquee was bigger than the voice that carried it. 10 decisions, some made as formal votes, some buried in contract disputes, some delivered backstage between songs. That said, the group is worth more than the one who is making it matter. Every single one of them was wrong. This is what it cost. Number 10, Shalamar. Before I tell you what Shalamar did, I need to tell you who Jody Watley was, because that is the part that makes what came next mean something. She started dancing on Soul Train at 14 years old. Don Cornelius himself selected her. In an era when that show was the most important stage in black music, Jody Watley was one of its most recognizable faces, before she had ever recorded a note. The presence was already there. The star quality was already there. She just needed a vehicle. That vehicle became Shalamar. She was part of the group's classic lineup from 1977 through 1983, 6 years that produced The Second Time Around, A Night to Remember, Dead Giveaway, and 3 gold albums in the United States. She was performing, writing, shaping the group's identity, and receiving limited creative credit and, by her own account, insufficient financial compensation for any of it. In 1983, Jody Watley walked away, Shalamar let her go, and then the group continued, holding the name, holding the catalog, bringing in different members, operating on the belief that what made Shalamar work was the collective brand, not the specific woman who had been one of its defining faces. Four years later, the verdict arrived. In 1987, Jody Watley released her debut solo album on MCA Records, 3 top 10 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, platinum sales, and in 1988, the Grammy Award for Best New Artist, the same woman who Shalamar's label and management had never quite let lead. Industry people questioned the Grammy win on a technicality. She had released music briefly in England under just her first name before the album. But the truth was simpler. She had been a star before anyone in that structure was ready to say so. Shalamar kept the name. The name outlasted the magic by about 40 years and has not reproduced it since. If you heard A Night to Remember on the radio growing up, you already know which part of that group you were actually listening to. The next name on this list is someone the group didn't lose to ambition. They lost her to something more ordinary than that. And what she left behind, in terms of chart success, was the greatest peak of their career. Number 9, Atlantic Starr. Atlantic Starr had been making music since 1976. 9 members originally. A White Plains, New York collective that built themselves across several albums into a respected name on the R&B chart without ever fully breaking through to mainstream pop. For 8 years they worked. In 1984, their original lead vocalist Sharon Bryant left for a solo career. The group needed to rebuild. What they found was Barbara Weathers. She was 20 years old. She had been performing professionally since she was 13. And when she walked into the recording studio with the Lewis brothers in late 1984 and laid down a song called Secret Lovers, they understood immediately. This was it. In 1985, Secret Lovers reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, the group's first major pop crossover hit after nearly a decade of trying. In 1987, they went further, Always topped the pop chart, the R&B chart, and the adult contemporary chart simultaneously. Barbara Weathers' voice was at the center of all of it, and then she was gone. Serious internal conflicts, royalty disputes, tensions that had built through the pressure of their own success, led to Barbara Weathers leaving the group following the release of their platinum album. Atlantic Starr replaced her, then replaced the replacement. A revolving door of female leads over the next decade. And with each turn of that door, the group moved further from the sound that had made people stop what they were doing when it came on. Barbara Weathers released a solo album in 1990. The American market barely noticed, and I want to name what is true about that. Two people lost something in this story, not just the group. Barbara Weathers gave Atlantic Starr the greatest commercial moment of their career, and that moment never returned to her. There is a story still coming on this list I need you to hold. In most of these entries, the group lost their star through conflict, through market forces, through the slow erosion of something that had worked. But one of these names, We Will Get There, involves a man who looked directly at what his lead singer had built, understood it completely, and chose his own name above the voice that was making all of it possible. Remember that I said that. Number 8 is a man whose voice gave a group 7 top 10 pop singles in 5 years. He asked for one thing in return. They said no, and neither of them ever fully recovered. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's one coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, The Spinners. Philipe Wynne grew up in an orphanage in Cincinnati, Ohio. He found his way to gospel music first, then to R&B, then to Detroit, and in 1972, to a group called the Spinners, who had just left Motown for Atlantic Records and needed something they had never quite had before. A lead vocalist who could take a song apart in real time and put it back together as something no one had heard before he touched it. They found that in Philipe Wynne. During his 5 years with the Spinners, the group had 7 top 10 pop singles and 6 number 1 R&B hits. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, One of a Kind, Love Affair. Then Came You with Dionne Warwick, the Spinners' only number 1 pop hit, The Rubber Band Man. The Tom Bell productions were extraordinary. The material was as good as anything coming out of Philadelphia. But the thing that made audiences pay, that made people drive across the city to see them live, was Philipe Wynne himself. He would improvise into the audience. He would hold notes past where the arrangement expected him to stop. He was not just a vocalist, He was a performer who understood that the written version of a song was only a starting point. By 1977, the relationship had come apart. Philipe Wynne asked the Spinners to rename the group Philipe Wynne and the Spinners. They refused. He walked. And I want to be precise about what happened next, because precision is the only respect I can give him now. Philipe Wynne's solo career produced no major hits. He spent time with Parliament Funkadelic, released albums that went unnoticed, and never regained a commercial footing that matched what he had built with the group. The Spinners continued with a new lead vocalist and had a modest run of disco-era hits before gradually fading from the charts. On July 14, 1984, Philipe Wynne was performing at a nightclub in Oakland, California. He suffered a heart attack on stage. He was 43 years old. He died the following morning, and if this name is new to you, that is not your fault. But it does not have to stay that way. He was one of the great R&B vocalists of the 1970s. His name deserves to be said clearly, and it has not been said nearly enough. Number 7 stayed quiet for years about why she really left. When the truth finally came out, in full, publicly, clearly, what she described made everything that happened to her afterward make painful sense. Number 7, En Vogue. Dawn Robinson was born in New London, Connecticut. She was singing in church as a young girl. By 1989, she had auditioned for a new group being assembled in Oakland, California, and she got in. In 1990, En Vogue released Hold On. It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the R&B chart, and it was only the beginning. For 7 years, Dawn Robinson was one of 4 founding members of one of the most successful girl groups in music history. En Vogue sold 28 million records. They earned 8 Grammy nominations. My Lovin', You're Never Gonna Get It, Free Your Mind, Giving Him Something He Can Feel. The vocal combination of those 4 women was something the industry could not manufacture and did not stop trying to replicate. They were the second most successful girl group of the 1990s, behind only TLC, and Dawn Robinson's voice, unmistakable, irreplaceable, the low lead that anchored the group's sound, was a defining instrument in what they were. In March 1997, contractual negotiations for their 3rd album reached a stalemate. Dawn Robinson left. In 2021, speaking publicly about what had happened, she said, "We were getting paid 2 cents a record. We had sold 28 million records, and we were getting 2 cents per girl." The remaining 3 members disputed the characterization. They said the contract was standard, that they had all signed it. And perhaps that is true. Perhaps the contract was standard. That does not make what it contained acceptable. En Vogue continued as a trio. They released their 3rd album. They kept working. But Don't Let Go, Love, which had reached number 2 on the Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B chart, and which featured Dawn Robinson's lead vocals, was never matched. The group spent years pursuing a follow-up cultural moment to a song they could only have made with the voice that had already left. And I will say clearly what most people won't. What was done to Dawn Robinson, to every woman in that group, by a record industry that held 28 million in sales and returned 2 cents per record per person was not an accident or an oversight. It was a structure, deliberately designed, still running. What comes next is the entry where the group watched their creative engine dissolve and then discovered on the charts exactly what it had been powering. Number 6, Xscape, Kandi Burruss. Kandi Burruss grew up in College Park, Georgia. She was singing from childhood. By 1992, she was 1/4 of Xscape, an Atlanta group signed to Jermaine Dupri's So Def Records that released 3 consecutive platinum albums. Hummin' Comin' at Cha in 1993, Off the Hook in 1995, Traces of My Lipstick in 1998, 6 top 10 pop songs across a decade, Just Kickin' It, Understanding, Who Can I Run To? What the group had in Kandi Burruss was not simply a vocalist, it was a songwriter, a producer, the creative intelligence that understood, before most people in the room did, how a song was supposed to move. She was writing. She was shaping the material. She had her hands on the direction of the sound in ways the group and the label recognized only partially, which is to say, they heard what came out, without always understanding where it came from. In 1998, Xscape dissolved. The group imploded over creative conflicts and management tensions, and Kandi Burruss, separated from the collective she had helped build, began doing what she was always capable of and had never been fully given room to do, writing for other people. In 1999, she co-wrote a song with Tiny Cottle, originally meant for themselves, and gave it to TLC. No Scrubs reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was nominated for Record of the Year at the Grammy Awards. In 2000, Kandi Burruss won the Grammy Award for Best R&B Song. She also co-wrote Bills, Bills, Bills for Destiny's Child and There You Go for Pink in the same year. 3 hit songs for 3 different artists in 1 calendar year. She won ASCAP Songwriter of the Year. In 2005, the remaining members of Xscape attempted to reunite and record without Kandi. The album was shelved and never commercially released. The group dissolved again in 2006. And whether the people who made that decision understood what they were leaving behind, I think you already know the answer to that. Number 5 is the entry where the group said, "The name is big enough to survive anything." They were almost right, but almost is not the same thing as right. Number 5, the Commodores, Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie grew up on the campus of the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, where his grandfather worked. He was surrounded by scholarship and purpose from the beginning. By the late 1960s, he was at Tuskegee University playing saxophone and piano, and he was one of the founding members of a group that would eventually become the Commodores, who signed with Motown Records in 1972 and spent the next decade becoming one of the defining voices in American R&B and funk. Easy, 3 times a lady, still. Sail on. The Commodores knew how to deliver. They had a sound, they had a catalog, they had a fan base that crossed generations. And the primary reason for almost all of it was the man standing in front, writing the ballads, singing the leads, supplying the creative direction that turned a solid group into a reliable radio event. By 1981, the separation had already begun. Endless Love, his duet with Diana Ross, reached #1. In 1982, Lionel Richie formally stepped away from the Commodores to pursue his solo career full-time. The Commodores went on. In 1985, Night Shift reached #1 on the R&B chart, #3 on the pop chart. It won a Grammy. It was a real achievement, a good song, genuinely, and the group deserves credit for it. They did not simply collapse. But Lionel Richie's solo catalog from that same period is one of the most commercially dominant runs in modern music history. Truly, All Night Long, Hello, Say You, Say Me. Back-to-back #1 singles. Can't Slow Down won the Grammy for Album of the Year. He sold tens of millions of records in a window of time when the Commodores were working hard to remain relevant. The Commodores kept the name. Lionel Richie kept everything the name had been built on. And some of you have thought about this before. The idea that in a group, the thing you share is not always divided equally, that some contributions are more foundational than the collective will ever formally acknowledge. The Commodores gave the world Lionel Richie. What Lionel Richie gave back was a solo discography that put the group's years as a footnote to his own. #4 is the story where a group's lead voice went solo and, within a single album cycle, sold over 10 million copies worldwide. The group's response arrived several years later when the moment had already passed. #4, Dru Hill, Sisqó. Dru Hill was formed in Baltimore, Maryland in the early 1990s. 4 young men with a sound built around traditional R&B harmonics and the conviction that the group vocal was still the most powerful instrument in the genre. In My Bed, Never Make a Promise, How Deep Is Your Love? By the late 1990s, Dru Hill was one of the most commercially successful R&B groups in the country. And at the front of all of it was Mark Andrews, who performed as Sisqó. Let me be precise about what Sisqó was inside Dru Hill. He was the first voice, the ad-libs, the runs, the falsetto that could take a song from technically accomplished to something that made you reach for the volume. He was also the performance. The thing you remembered after the song stopped. He was the reason people held their breath during the concert portion they were not expecting to hold their breath through. In 1999, Sisqó launched his solo career. He released Unleash the Dragon. The album eventually sold over 10 million copies worldwide. The lead single, Thong Song, reached #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the most culturally embedded songs of its entire era. Incomplete reached #1 on the R&B chart. Dru Hill went silent. The group attempted reunions and recordings over the following years, but could not reassemble the commercial or creative momentum they had built. The combination of voices, once separated, was not simply a matter of reconnecting people. Something specific had been in that lineup that required all of its original parts to produce what it had produced. And if you have Thong Song somewhere in your memory right now, I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Does that song belong to a group or to the specific voice that made it impossible to forget? The answer is the same as the question. What comes next is the entry I mentioned near the beginning of this list, the one where what happened was not neglect and not the slow erosion of something good. It was deliberate. It was a choice made clearly by a man who understood exactly what he was choosing. We are there now. Number 3, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass. Teddy Pendergrass was born in Philadelphia in 1950. He came up through gospel music that understood the voice not as an instrument of craft, but as a declaration of something true. By the time he joined Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes as their drummer in 1970, he had already spent years shaping what he was going to do when someone gave him a microphone. That year, the group's lead singer departed. Harold Melvin put Teddy Pendergrass in front. If You Don't Know Me By Now, 1972, number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the R&B chart. That was Teddy's voice. The Love I Lost, I Miss You, Bad Luck, Wake Up Everybody. Every signature moment in the group's catalog was built on Teddy Pendergrass singing.
Let me do what I want to do. All I want to do is make.
And with every record, his name was growing. In the music press, on the street, in R&B fan communities across the country, while Harold Melvin's name sat at the top of the marquee above it all. By 1975, the group's label agreed to a compromise. The album To Be True was billed Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, featuring Theodore Pendergrass. Fans were recognizing Teddy's face at performances, calling his name, in some cases, confusing Harold Melvin for Teddy himself. Harold Melvin had one lead vocal on a Blue Notes record, a duet, and even on that song, by the accounts of people who were present, Teddy's performance in the background drew more attention than Harold's lead from the front.
And it's exactly like I thought it would be.
Teddy Pendergrass asked for the group to be renamed Teddy Pendergrass and the Blue Notes. Harold Melvin said no. This is the story I mentioned.
I like the way you make me feel.
I told you near the beginning that there was a name on this list where what happened was not neglect and not circumstance. Harold Melvin looked at what Teddy Pendergrass had made his group into. He understood the full weight of it. He knew exactly what that voice meant to the records, to the ticket sales, to the name that appeared above Teddy's on every marquee. He knew all of it, and he chose to hold his name above it. In 1976, Teddy Pendergrass left. Harold Melvin replaced him with a new vocalist and kept recording. Teddy Pendergrass went on to release 4 consecutive platinum solo albums. At the time, that was a record for a black R&B male artist. Close the door, turn off the lights. He was, for a span in the late 1970s, the defining R&B male voice in America. In March 1982, Teddy Pendergrass was involved in a serious car accident that left him paralyzed from the chest down. He was 32 years old. He came back. He performed at Live Aid in 1985. He kept recording. He kept singing. He never stopped. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes had their last significant chart entry in 1977, Reaching for the World, number 7 R&B, and then, effectively, nothing more. Harold Melvin died on March 24, 1997. Teddy Pendergrass died on January 13, 2010, of respiratory failure. Some of you just went quiet. That is the right response.
Get closer and closer, so close to me.
Number 2 is the entry I have thought about the longest, because the song, you know the song, it has been part of the fabric of American music for more than 60 years. But knowing the song and knowing what it cost the man who sang it are two different kinds of knowing. Let me give you the second one. Number 2, The Temptations. David Ruffin. Let me tell you who David Ruffin was before I tell you what happened to him. He grew up in Wynne, Mississippi. His mother died in childhood. He was raised by his father, a Baptist minister, and left home at 13 intending to follow his father into ministry. Music found him instead. Memphis talent shows, Detroit in the early 1960s, the gravitational pull of Motown Records, where Berry Gordy was assembling the most concentrated collection of musical talent in American history. In January 1964, David Ruffin joined the Temptations. He was the replacement for a departing member. Within a year, Smokey Robinson had written a specific song for his specific voice. Something melodic and sweet, Smokey's own description, but something that Ruffin could also build. Something built for the particular way David Ruffin's voice moved between control and abandon. You know this song. It has been in the fabric of American music for more than 60 years. It has been streamed nearly 500 million times on one platform alone. But knowing the song, and knowing what it cost the man who sang it, those are two different kinds of knowing. Let me give you the second one. My Girl reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1965. It was the Temptations' first chart-topping single, and it was just the beginning. Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Beauty is only skin deep. I wish it would rain. I know I'm losing you. Song after song, David Ruffin's voice defining what the Temptations sounded like at the height of their power. He was 6'2", lamppost thin, bespectacled in a way that somehow became magnetic, and the most electric presence on the most successful soul group in the world. What David Ruffin wanted was the same thing Philipe Wynne wanted, the same thing Teddy Pendergrass wanted. His name alongside the groups, the way Diana Ross's name had appeared alongside the Supremes. He wanted acknowledgement of what he was contributing, what everyone around him already knew. They said no.
I don't understand it, but I know it's gonna take.
On June 22nd, 1968, David Ruffin missed a Temptations concert in Cleveland, Ohio. He had gone instead to watch his girlfriend perform at a venue in New Jersey. The group had been waiting for a reason. 5 days later, on June 27, 1968, David Ruffin was fired from the Temptations. Dennis Edwards took his place.
So I'm leaving.
His solo career had moments of real light. My Whole World Ended, The Moment You Left Me, in 1969. Walk Away from Love in 1975. But the trajectory was not what his voice deserved. Addiction, legal trouble, a personal life that came apart in pieces. In 1989, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with 5 other Temptations. On June 1, 1991, David Ruffin collapsed in a crack house in Philadelphia. He was taken to the hospital by limousine and dropped at the entrance. He was wearing Bermuda shorts and a sports shirt. He carried no identification. The hospital tagged him John Doe. He was 50 years old. I know. I felt the same way the first time I really sat with that. The man whose voice gave the world My Girl, a song that will outlast most of what is being made right now, died at the door of a hospital without an ID in his pocket, identified by no one. Number 1 is the name this entire list was building toward, and I need just a moment before I tell it. Number 1, New Edition, Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown was born on February 5, 1969, in the Roxbury neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. He was the youngest of 8 children. He was performing, singing, dancing, commanding a room, before most children his age had decided what they wanted to do at all. He joined a neighborhood talent circle with Ricky Bell and Michael Bivins, added Ralph Tresvant and Ronnie DeVoe, and by 1982 they were performing at Boston talent shows as New Edition. When producer Maurice Starr found them, they were still children. Candy Girl, 1983, #1 on the R&B chart. They were 12 and 13 years old. Let me tell you precisely what Bobby Brown contributed to New Edition that the other four did not. He was not the strongest traditional vocalist in the group. That was Ralph Tresvant. He was not the most experienced showman in terms of formal choreography. What Bobby Brown had was something that cannot be rehearsed and cannot be replaced once it leaves. He was the danger in the room. The part of the performance that felt slightly out of control. The moment in the show where you were not entirely sure what was going to happen next. In an industry that required young black men to be wholesome and choreographed and palatable, Bobby Brown was the one who could not quite make himself that. Not because he lacked discipline, because he was something else. And the audience could feel it every single time. By 1985, the tension had become structural. Bobby was adding to his performances in ways the group had not sanctioned. He was missing key television appearances, Soul Train, Solid Gold, the kind of platforms New Edition needed to make specific statements as a group. The other four shortened his solo time. During a backstage confrontation in 1985, he threw a microphone at Michael Bivins. The group had already decided something needed to change. In 1986, New Edition held a vote. Bobby Brown was out. He signed with MCA Records. In 1988, he released Don't Be Cruel. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, #1 on the R&B albums chart. My Prerogative reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Bobby Brown, the man they had voted out, became the defining solo R&B male artist of his generation. New Edition released Heartbreak in 1988 as well, and it was a genuinely strong album that charted well. They had real success, but by then, the conversation had already shifted. The group that voted Bobby Brown out was watching him collect #1 records with the independents they had told him he was not allowed to have. And here is the specific thing about My Prerogative that deserves to be said plainly. That song is not a love song. It is not a breakup record. It is a statement. Everybody's talking all this stuff about me. Why don't they just let me live?